Hello and welcome back to the Safety Brief. I'm your host Elizabeth, and today we're digging into a growing cyber threat that's hiding in plain sight: QR codes. Yes, those little black and white squares we scan every day. They're quick, they're easy, and in 2025, they're also being used to launch cyber attacks. We call it quishing, a type of phishing that tricks users into scanning malicious QR codes, leading to fake login pages, malware downloads, or even data theft. I have Mike and Matt here joining us today to walk through what these look like and how you can be protected moving forward. Appreciate you
Thanks so
guys
much.
joining. Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry. Well, first up, what exactly is quishing and how is it different from traditional phishing attacks that we see on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's a good topic. It's a relevant topic. I think, at very routine gatherings, everything from restaurants, in even in airports, restaurants with QR code menus are pretty common. You'll find QR codes at other venues that need to share a multitude of resources on a single, able to be updated type fashion, right? But the danger is you don't know what's behind that code or what link is embedded in that code. And so, where traditional phishing has the body of the email or an attachment or a redirect link to take you out of that email to a website, QR codes present a little bit of a dilemma because now we're not scanning a link, we're scanning an image, which reroutes to a link. And so, really, the complexity of it is users are more likely to encounter a QR code outside of their email mailbox. There certainly are QR codes in the email, but there's not scanning or filtering over what you pull out your phone and to open the camera and take a picture of as far as QR codes. And so I think that's the danger. There's further an anonymity as far as what is behind the QR codes and the lack thereof of filtering.
Yeah, I also like to think about the fact that you're scanning these with your phone, so it's a lot different than clicking on a malicious link on your endpoint. This is on your phone where all your photos are, all your contacts, if you're logged into your email, if you're logged into your banking, and so on and so forth. So I feel like it's even a little bit more dangerous as well.
Only if you're not using an iPhone.
Yeah, iPhone does have better security, I will say. So you might be thinking, okay, but where am I actually seeing these fake QR codes? So, like, where do people most likely encounter malicious QR codes in their everyday lives?
Anywhere. I mean, if you really want honesty, anywhere. You don't specifically choose a place to put it.
Hmm.
You put it up randomly because if it's in a random location, people get curious, then people scan it.
Yeah, I think the most common, if people are thinking, oh, what's a QR code? It's a perfectly square, almost barcode, if you will, for those that are not already familiar. But anyone that really went out to dinner at a restaurant, through 2019 through 2022 during kind of the COVID pandemic, we're very familiar with QR codes, right? We got away from menus. People would throw a QR code on a table or on a table stand or whatnot. A lot of to-go places have a QR code on the outside of, hey, if you want to place an order for your food, here's the menu and the way to order your food as well. Again, I think it's dangerous because, just as Matt said, it costs, you know, anybody that means to intend harm on people very little to print out a sticker or an image of a different QR code. And there's no real way or like trademark on a QR code to say, I know that this is approved or this is, how do you say, vetted. Some QR codes that have like the company logo in the middle. I think they're getting
Mm-hmm.
better at certain ways of kind of saying, hey, if you don't see the Blockworks logo, if you don't see the restaurant logo or whatever, right? Even the color schema. But again, historically, it's a very low barrier of entry for threat actors, right? Because it's literally black and white. Anybody can make a QR code, right? There's no like cost to it. There's a lot of free generators. But again, the difficulty is you are assuming what is behind that code is legitimate. and gas pumps. I've even seen like fake QR codes, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, where they'll just threat actors or bad guys will just put this sticker on a gas pump. People won't know
Hmm.
anything of it. They'll pull up their phone, they'll click on it, they're like, "Oh, that's cool, that's neat. I like QR codes." And they're paying for something,
Yeah.
but it's not the gas station, and it's not for gas, and then they're going to wonder why the pump's not turning on. And so I think again, just like Matt said, it's dangerous because it could literally be anywhere that you could print an image or print a sticker and throw it on somewhere, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's dangerous for sure.
Don't
Yeah,
even
you
have to
know.
print a full sticker. All you
Right.
have to do is replace the centralized portion of it where the code actually exists. The
Yeah, you
rest is
know.
cuteness. So,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of recent blogs talking about how criminals have started slapping the QR stickers over legit ones. So, like Matt
hmm
was saying, they'll make their own QR code that's malicious and slap it over better, well known QR codes. And like Mike was saying, there's no real way to test that out without
Right.
scanning it, you know? So, it's pretty dangerous. I've also seen QR codes popping up in game servers as well. So if you're a gamer and there's either any kind of messaging mechanisms where you can send photos or anything along that nature, the social medias built into game servers. I've also seen QR codes on those platforms as well, which again can be dangerous. So let's say someone falls for it. They scan the code. What actually happens when someone scans a dangerous QR code? What's the real risk that they're scanning?
Yeah, I think again, there's preventative measures, but when or if you scan it and you recognize that it's malicious, it'll honestly depend on if you've entered data or if you haven't. If you haven't entered data, close the link on your phone and, do what you can to maybe sanitize cache, cookies, things like that, your web browser on your phone, like minor stuff, right? Obviously, there are some that would go so far to scan their phone for with antivirus, but even phone antivirus, you got to be careful where you're getting that from, and who uses that. But again, I think preventative side of number one, check for tampering with any code. Look for a sticker. Look for something that if it's not clearly printed on the menu or wherever, candidly you can always ask for at restaurants now a physical menu, right? Like that is
Yeah,
something that a lot of restaurants have. And we're not picking on restaurants. We're just saying where people are most likely to encounter them. But if you don't feel comfortable scanning a QR code and it's business related, 100% walk up to the closest employee you can find and just say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable scanning the code, or I'm not able to verify that's your code, or whatever. Can I just have a physical menu?" Right? And that's an easy way. But I think again, if you are falling victim to it, if you have put in data, obviously, if it's company credentialing or data that you've put in, notify your IT administrator as soon as you do that, kind of the means through which, hey, I saw this. Maybe other people at our company may fall for the same thing. Here's some details. Otherwise, if it's a personal account, good old password reset. Make sure it's unique. Make sure it's changed. Make sure you have MFA on as well. But those are some first thoughts.
yeah, thank you for that, Mike. Not to plug anyone here, but I actually personally use AVG on my personal devices. So that comes with a VPN, it comes with secure web browsing. So essentially, if I were to scan a malicious QR code on my phone and I have my secure browser initiated through AVG or a different application you may use, it will stop it right then and there. It won't even open the link or let anything execute. So, just like your endpoints at work, security is important on your phones as well, especially with the amount of data that's on them. Now, let's talk targets. In your opinion, are there specific industries or devices that are more vulnerable to phishing attacks, like maybe healthcare, anything along those lines?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, again, we get into the services industry and even the entertainment industry. I've been to certain, bars and restaurants where the artist, if there's like live music, for example, they'll have like a code or a QR code to their Venmo or to their Cash App or whatever to like tip the performer or whatever, whoever's playing guitar or whatever on the at the venue. But I think, what's interesting as far as QR codes, and Matt, I mean, not to be redundant, but Matt's really pointed out that the as easily accessible as they are, They really are everywhere. I mean, I've seen them at church for like church announcements. Hey, there's a full link of everything happening coming up in these events. Scan this QR code. I've had them where, out at the soccer field where, hey, here's where the schedule is for the season. Here's this QR code, just scan this, right? So like really there's a high rate of adoption both from businesses and everyday people, right? And it's, you'd be driving down the road and seeing somebody's got like a pool cleaning service or something on their vehicle and their
Mhm.
vehicle's wrapped, they might have a QR code there, right? And so again, biggest thing is verifying the legitimacy of the code, right? If it's first layer printing, if it's proprietary to the business, then there's there's novelty to it, there's benefit. But I think the biggest thing to also be aware of, and maybe this is a rabbit hole, but is downloading QR scanning apps to scan QR codes, right? Like most QR codes can be scanned just with your native phone camera app. I don't know, and Matt, you may be privy to this, but I don't know if there is a more secure QR code scanning app to use than the native just camera app, right? Like don't
Not
download
really.
some sketchy third party app just to scan QR codes.
You have more of a chance of getting screwed by downloading those apps than you do by actually scanning the QR code.
Right.
Well, there
Yeah.
you
So fun
go.
QR
fact, you
code
Million
don't
is
need
dollar
going
an
to
app.
take you
idea.
to, yeah, the
Yeah. Fun
QR code
fact,
is going
you
to
don't need
take
an
you
app.
to an app, or it's going to take you to a website, or it's going to, it's not going to be able to do anything on its own. It's going to require a secondary action.
Right.
Whereas if you are installing any of these third party apps, and I hate to say it, and I'm going to pick on the team green here for a bit, Android sucks at actually vetting out any of their apps and if they're malicious.
Oh,
Their
it's
app
open
store,
source.
no, well, yeah, it's open source. Um, if you
Anyone
look
can
at
post any
how
app.
there still is a vetting process, it just sucks. Uh, they look at very little before they will actually approve apps to be on their store. Apple is a lot more stringent with what they want you to do, but there was a point where the Android marketplace was over 60% malicious software. So think about if you think about that, for every two apps you were downloading, roughly like 1.2 of that app was actually malicious. So you have a much greater chance of getting something downloaded from those apps and allowing them to most likely become a banking Trojan than you do from just going to the QR code. So yeah, there's a lot to learn from that.
Okay, Mike, you touched on this a little bit, but how would you, I guess, verify that a QR code is safe before scanning it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I know personal experience, it could, mileage may vary, but when I pull out my phone, before, clicking the link, there is usually a preview of the link behind the QR code that appears in the iOS, like Apple camera app. So if I pull out my phone, right, I open up a camera and I'm scanning an app, or a QR code rather, there is a link at the bottom of the camera frame that shows like www dot blah 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 blah, right? And so I would say, if you're scanning a QR code, glance at that, take a moment and just take notice of, hey, what exactly is this website? Does this website look legitimate? Is it start with the restaurant name? Again, not picking on restaurants, could be the gas station, could be anywhere. But does it relatively reflect? Because then again, we're talking about now like redirect inception, right? If they're using a bit.ly, like a URL shortener, right? You got a QR code, which is then a URL redirect link. So you really even can't tell where you're going to end up. But I would say, for most cases, generally speaking, pull out your phone, pull out the camera. Don't use some really sketchy or poorly coded QR scanning app. If you have a QR code app that is giving you advertisements, uninstall it. QR code scanning is free, right? You don't need an app for it, but use the native phone app to your phone, or use the native camera app to your phone, scan the QR code there, and then look for that URL preview in the bottom, just as a second form of due diligence, right? And that's assuming you're not able to communicate with someone and ask for an alternative way to ask for this information behind the QR code, or if it's like unattended, right? You're not there with somebody and you're just scanning the code on your own. But I would say those are the big the big two. Get rid of any third-party QR code scanning apps. You don't need them. Uninstall it. Get that bloatware off your phone, and then take a moment. Just take notice of that link in the bottom of your camera frame, just to see where you're going to end up.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that iPhone is really good about with the preview. You can do that for suspicious links that come through to your phone as well. If you long click on it, it will actually load a
Oh,
preview that does not actually load anything like locally on the device.
that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So
Long press.
I
That
do that
3D
every once in
touch.
a while. Yeah.
I haven't fully adopted it, but I'm sure that's sweet. That's a sweet feature.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff that you can actually do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same advice that we use for phishing as well. I think on one of our previous episodes, we also said, if you hover over the link with your mouse, you're able to preview the link before clicking. So again, it's just kind of that same thing that we always say on the safety brief is taking that moment to pause and
Right.
reflect before you take any action. So does this link look malicious? Does this link on a Starbucks, flyer, is it taking me to starbucks.com, or is it taking me to some random long URL that I've never heard of? So, no, I appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah. You bet.
Now, on the flip side, if your business is using QR codes for customers, you have a role to play. What best practices should businesses follow when deploying QR codes for marketing or authentication?
Yeah, this is a great this is a great topic to go down. I think again, as we try and further legitimize QR codes saying we've stamped it, we've generated it, we've created it. There are some QR code generators that you can play with the color schema, align it to the branding of that business. It just makes it more difficult for a threat actor to replicate it or change it or recreate it. Another one is you put the logo or any logo, proprietary to your business in the middle of the QR code. We've seen variations of that as far as that's concerned. But I think, again, QR codes are evolving as far as, hey, how do companies that use them know that they are weaponized, and it's not so easy to masquerade an email from appblockworks.com, but it's a lot easier to just maybe grab a Blockworks logo, throw it on the bottom of a QR code, throw a QR code on top, right? So trying to be able to brand the QR code itself, throw a logo in the QR code within the code itself. There are some really neat ways of generating QR codes in that way. And so, but typically those, again, they require paid apps due to paywalling them from threat actors being able to, bad guys get in there and use them, right? And so again, I think it's a handy little tool, saves you time. But I would say, if you could do anything to more further legitimize it, and also candidly provide the URL. Whenever we use a QR code, just from personal experience, whenever we use a QR code at a marketing event or in an email, we always just put the URL underneath the QR code for the sake of, hey, in the event that you don't want to use the QR code, or you're not able to validate, or you don't feel comfortable using it, that's fine. Just simply go ahead and follow the link on the bottom. It takes a little bit, a couple seconds as far as typing, but you end up at the same place.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to point that out as well because, you from a marketing standpoint, you could be losing leads or people who would scan it, um, or wouldn't scan it. I'm sorry, that could use the URL as well. And it also allows them to check the URL. So if you are utilizing that hover or looking at the QR code to confirm, you can look at the flyer or graphic or whatever it may be to confirm that it is opening or going to open the link that was provided. Well, let's wrap this episode up with some proactive protection tips. What tools, settings, or browser protections can help users stay safe from QR-based threats?
Just don't scan them. Every
Yeah,
week, it's the same response from me. Just don't do it.
yeah,
I don't care what it is. Just don't do it. Just do nothing. All week, just do nothing. You will be safe.
yeah.
Ish.
I think there's room for QR code hardening, and again, this is new tech in general. I think if we zoom out and we just look at this as we've been doing the safety brief for a long time. We've all been in security a long time. Any new feature is typically kind of introduced to the consumer market, feature driven, security lacking, right? Like it is void of security, and it's all feature based. And so, hey, IoT, super, super fun, super, super cool. It's got some neat little novelty to it. It's a security nightmare, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Unless properly hardened and segmented. And so I think if you're able to look at QR codes in the same way, hey, this thing has evolved seemingly out of nowhere. Somehow we all our phones became able to scan these codes, and this universal language developed and said, yeah, we know exactly how to get from this code to this link. But I think it's a challenge to just like, in the same industry that's developed it can harden it, looking at ways that, hey, is there a secondary code behind the QR code, right? MFA that's like, hey, if you are reaching a link behind a QR code that's legitimate to a business, you're going to see a business logo splash page. You're going to have a code that you're provided to prompt, and it's not a password, right? It's a code that you're given, like a 6-digit code or something, almost like an MFA, to validate the link is legitimate, right? And so it's no different than how the title and real estate industries have had to do wire transfers now. It is very, very, it's MFA is an understatement. It's like
Yeah.
million FA, right? Like there are so many uh, ways that it's validated. Hey, what's the purpose of the wire? You talked to somebody over the phone that works, or in person that works at this, say a car dealership or a real estate firm that provides it. Again, there's so many forms of validation in order to remain prevention centric, right? To stay away from the chance of being compromised. And so again, it requires a couple extra minutes. It could be a little bit of an inconvenience, but the ultimate goal is, hey, I'm taking a look at this link, I'm manually typing in this link that I've been provided, or I'm just sitting at the menu or at the restaurant asking for a physical menu, just as a better safe than sorry type of mindset, right? Like again, it's a ounce of prevention, it really results in is better than a pound of cure, right? And so I think that just again that motif, that theme, that mantra is consistent with QR codes or anything as far as new tech. But to Matt's point, until the industry further hardens them, or until businesses are better at, providing some form of validation that they're theirs, don't use them. Hey, do you have a link to get to this thing? Hey, can you just email me the full link if I'm trying to get to a soccer schedule or a list of announcements or whatever it is, right? Again, we're not demonizing them. We're just acknowledging that, hey, there is inherent risk in scanning QR codes, and there's very few ways, measurably, that you can mitigate that risk in the current present age. So, food for thought, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. I think another thing to keep in mind as well is there is an automatic QR scanning option in your settings, like your phone
Hmm,
settings. So be sure to disable the automatic QR actions if your device allows it. It's not for all devices, but for some.
that's
Well,
super handy.
yeah, yeah. And if you have it automatically, then you also won't be able to preview the link. It's just going to open.
Right.
So definitely disable that. You don't want anything automatically opening. Again, it may take a few more seconds, but it's worth it for your security. Well, that's all the time we have for today. But remember, Quishing is in the rise because it preys on routine. We scan codes without thinking. But just like we've learned on previous episodes, it's important to pause before clicking links. Excuse me. It's time to apply that same caution to scanning as well. Thank you for joining this week's safety brief. If you found this helpful, share it with your team, your family, or your friends because this is something that affects everyone. Until next time, stay frosty.
Thanks all.